Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the epidemic of false accusations by women against men for supposed rape or sex without consent or sexually inappropriate behaviour and so on. Now, there's a few situations comes up. Someone I know was accused of inappropriate behaviour, trying to pressure a woman into engaging in intimate relations, and she reported that it had happened in a certain place at a certain time, and so the police were investigating it, and he was effectively treated. You did it, buddy, and so he was able to prove that using phone geolocation and sworn statements that he had spoken to somebody to say. So at the time this woman alleged that it had occurred, he'd actually been a million miles away and could prove that by not only the location of his phone, but that he'd been talking to people on the phone from those locations. So he had to do all that work. They weren't going to investigate it. As far as they're concerned, he was fucking guilty, and any evidence that he could prove otherwise was up to him to put together. The police weren't going to verify the woman's allegations. They were fact. But his denials had to be proved to quite a high burden of proof. And this is just by the police. It's not even in fucking court, for Christ's sake. Now, you'd think the police would do their job. Okay, you've made an allegation. Let's ascertain the truth of it. But ideology has crept in. We all know that women are oppressed victims. We all know that straight white men are fucking Nazis, fascist, rapist, Nazis. So he has to prove he didn't do it. I mean, if she just says it or even suggests or implies, then that's it. It's fact. It's cast in concrete fact. If he denies it, though, he has to jump over a burden of proof that's a million miles high. So he was able to do it, though, and put it together pretty quickly. And on the strength of that, the police and the prosecution's department realised that there's no way they could take that into court. And so they dropped. But if he'd sort of waited until court to do this, then he'd have been up for all sorts of he may have lost his job by that point. It could have been the stress and the drama of it, waiting for the court case, the cost of lawyers, that whole thing could have cost him $50,000 just to go through the pro. Once they've got it in court, because the ideology, the judges, everyone's infected with this ideology now, then the judges aren't willing to let it go, or the Department of Prosecutions as well as the judges aren't willing to let it go till they've explored every possibility of putting this guy in prison, or fining him or something or other, even putting him on some long-term good behaviour bond. Well, you got off, but only because we didn't quite have enough evidence. That doesn't mean you're innocent, just means you weren't quite guilty. Motherfucking Nazi. So yeah, he doesn't want to go through that process. So he was able to prove that he was nowhere near so he was able to prove this woman's claims were false. So what happened to the woman? Was she then charged with making a false statement, which she should have been, because it was manifestly false, and obviously so? No, not at all. She just didn't get away with it. She walks off scot-free. There's nothing happens to her at all. Now, the ideological fanatics say, well, look, okay, so she told lies and she made it up, but that doesn't matter because we all know that all men are guilty of doing this. So this was just one instance where the man wasn't guilty and where the woman told him, but really she's an oppressed victim in an ideological sense. So really what she said wasn't a lie because we know that men everywhere are Nazis and they're doing this. So that's the ideology of it. Now, I just want to talk about a couple of cases. One that was recent where, this was a few years ago, where a teacher, this is a senior high school, so the teacher, male teacher, catches a couple of girls smoking marijuana. This is on the school grounds while they're wearing a school uniform and so on. So this is clearly, as you can imagine, clearly against the school's policies, and in fact it's illegal. What am I talking about? it's against the law, and so on. So these girls decided, whoa, we're in deep shit. We've been sprung smoking marijuana. Our parents, and what's going to happen? Will we be expelled from the school? What's going to happen? So they panic, and they these two girls cook up a story that the guy, the male teacher, behaved inappropriately sexually, and was grabbing their breasts and so on and so forth. So obviously very inappropriate behaviour. They were alleging, claiming, but this was their get out of trouble card. This was they cooked this up, and so they went to the outraged parents. My little baby, what's happened? So the whole thing was the teacher got stood down, and then there was investigation. Then he got fired. Then his ability to teach, like license, whatever they call it, is withdrawn. So like he's lost his. I mean, he's a man in his mid-40s or something. So 25 years of career building and science has gone up in smoke. And then he can't find other work. And then his wife decides to, they get divorced, and his whole life spirals out of control. He commits suicide, not surprisingly, given the circumstances. Everything, it's suddenly gone from everything's fine and dandy to then instantly he's fucked in every respect. Now, the girls, as it turns out, the girls have admitted to another girl that they made the whole thing up to get out of the marijuana thing. The teacher did say, well, look, I caught the girls, smoking marijuana. Don't you think this is a story they've cooked up to try and get back at me or something? Like, no, you damn fucking fascist great white male, fucking Nazi, you're fucking Hitler, and you damn well did it, you fucking Nazi. So that was the attitude that was taken by everybody. And so anyway, these girls were skiding about it. This is after the guys committed suicide, for goodness sake, skiding about it, that they made the whole thing up, and that'll show that teacher not to mess with them. And if they want to smoke marijuana, they're on the school grounds, a school uniform, then they damn well can, and who's he to tell us, and so on and so forth. So this then comes out in the what various witnesses. The school sort of panics a little bit, and then there are a few people who are uneasy about the whole thing. So they go into it and find that the girls lied about it, and so they just have a little bit of a cry, say they're sorry, end of it. They don't. There's nothing happens to them. They don't get done, or, get charged with something, or convicted, or fined, or the parents aren't. That's it. They just walk away from the whole thing. Now, this is not unusual. There are cases where women have. This is not schoolgirls, but adult women have accused men of raping them, or the cut down version of rape, which is not fully consensual sexual relations. These are, as I mentioned in a number of videos, well, this is where the legality of a woman giving consent has been changed. So if she has 1.5 glasses, for example, 1.5 glasses of wine, then she can still give consent. But if she has 2.25 glasses of wine, then her consent has no legal validity. It's considered as some form of fascist exploitation or patriarchy or something like that. But very ideological in its contrivance. So if they have fully consensual intimate relations, but 2.25 glasses of wine, then she can say later on, the next day or whatever, years into the future, she can say, well, actually, that wasn't consensual because my consent wasn't legally valid because I had another quarter glass of wine, or had another beer or something like that. So there are all these things in now where the net has been broadened and widened now, so that women have huge latitude to claim that it's unwanted sex or this or that, or that their consent wasn't valid, or things like this. So this creates a lot of opportunity for activist prosecutors, and indeed activist judges and activist police officers, and people who've been through the all men are vicious, evil, Nazi oppressor, patriarchy, type training. There's a lot of that training around. There's never any shortage of taxpayer money to fund that. So these people have been indoctrinated with this ideological madness. Many of them are just low IQ flunkies that don't fucking know what day it is barely. So they're put to they jump all over this because it's they're simple people and they've been ideologically told, well, go, screw the evidence, screw the facts, just go with the ideology, and they do. So there's a lot of men, straight white males in particular, being caught up in this, and it's again using technical type instances of applying the law in a very ideological, technical sense. Like, did you have another quarter glass of wine? You did. That means your consent's not valid. That means it's rape. This sort of thing, and very, very ideological. Now, there's a recent case in Britain where a couple of schoolgirls were claiming a teacher was touching them inappropriately and grabbing their ass, that type of stuff, and where he hadn't. It was an allegation, but the school didn't even bother with the minimum standards of evidence, and acted swiftly and viciously against this teacher. Fortunately, he had the support or the determination, the wherewithal to take them to court, and he won a very minimal, in my view, compensation settlement, and it was proved that the allegations were untrue and could have been discovered as being untrue very easily if the school and the various organisations around it had just applied an absolute minimum of evidence, factual-based evidence, instead of running off with the ideology, all men are patriarchal rapists type stuff, pedophiles or whatever. I mean, if they'd applied that rigour when they were going after the Pakistani grooming gangs in England, then I'm sure things would be very different. But they seem to only want to apply these when it comes to straight white males, which is an interesting sort of double standard there. Nonetheless, if we look at, as a CEO or EVP, I've had situations where women have made, female employees have made claims of inappropriate behaviour, but it's nearly always, in fact, I can't think of a time it wasn't, when it's some sort of internal power struggle, or she's trying to get even with him because he gave her a bad employee review or something like that. Now, there was one case where there was a cleaning company and they had contractors there, and they had a young guy who was mentally retarded, intellectually challenged, and he was a cleaner there, and there was quite a lot of he was cleaning in like an area where there's quite a lot of young women, and they were. He was allegedly leering at them, and I mean, bear in mind he's intellectually challenged, and so I had a deputation of these women come to me, young women. They're all like 18 to 25 type of age range, and they were outraged by this guy, not because he was leering, and some of these girls were acted in very provocative manners, sort of the clothes that they wear and this sort of thing. So it's not like they're angelic in any way. Or complete little angelic innocence or something like that. Their argument was they don't want this physically unattractive, retarded guy ogling at them and leering at them. If he's Hollywood movie, hot looking Hollywood movie star, fine, ogle your ass off. But they didn't want this guy to. So really, he hadn't done anything or been said anything to them, or hadn't. Grab their ass. It wasn't that. They just didn't like this ugly, retarded guy ogling at them, and they would shudder at the thought of it, and they wanted him gone. And that was the deputation. But today, I wouldn't be surprised. This was years ago. If today, I wouldn't be surprised if that guy get dragged into court or thrown in prison or something, looking the wrong way at the wrong time. So I went to the cleaning contract. I sort of looked and thought, well, gee, hey. But I went to the cleaning contract. Said, look, can you move him into another area of the office? Another area of the building. And for example, there was a warehouse area. So can you move him into that? This just diffuses the situation. I mean, you don't need to say anything. Don't accuse him of anything. Don't fire him. He's done nothing wrong. it's the sensibilities of the girls that are the issue here. He's committed no crime, and again, in respect, he's an intellectually challenged guy, and he's suddenly exposed to girls his own age, showing off lots of flesh. I mean, of course, he's going to look, and that's not a crime. But because he's intellectually challenged, he's unable to sort of be, more, have better manners or be more discreet about it or whatever. So anyway, and that was the end of it. So it didn't. But they sort of still wanted him. They wanted him punished. They wanted to see the girls. They wanted to see blood. We want to see him fired. We want to see him on the street. We want to see him screaming for mercy. And I just no, I'm not doing that. No. I'm not here to satisfy your lust for some twisted concept of vengeance or something. No, not doing it. I don't know today if you could actually sort of get away with that. Yeah, they'd probably accuse me of being a Nazi or something if I did that today. But anyway, this is so on other things though. I found it was all little petty internal power struggles, and the easiest way for the girls to get back at a guy, or the women to get back at a guy, was to accuse him of some sort of inappropriateness, or he demanded sexual favors or something like that. And this is always I've noticed in the bigger firms, this is always a go-to. If they don't like somebody, they want to get rid of them or somehow neutralize them or kneecap them in a proverbial sort of corporate sense, then the first thing they'll do is try and set them up with a woman. The honey trap type concept is set them up to do something inappropriate with a woman. And they go to extreme lengths to do it. They'll get some hot babe who'll be a temp, who isn't really a temp at all. She's just a plant to try and get him to, and she's been instructed to be as friendly as you can to this guy, get him to say or do anything, and then scream, run out of the office, tear a couple of buttons off your blouse, and say, "He tried to rape me." This sort of stuff is the go-to. It is the first go-to that the corporations will use. So just on the matter of in the wider ideological sort of landscape, and I've mentioned this in previous videos. I know some judges and that sort of thing, and I was quite surprised when one of them mentioned quite offhandedly that the majority of cases he hears today in court, and this is like a superior court, the cases he hears are rape cases. They're not the ones you'd imagine, like murder or armed robbery or grand theft auto or something. It's nothing, none of the big ticket stuff. It's allegations of rape that are absolutely minimal. They cop plea deals with the brown and black guys that commit the rape, because usually they're very overt and aggressive about it. But what we're talking about here is determinations of rape along purely ideological, technical lines. Those are the ones where they're chasing the white guys. So all these cases coming to court are just ideological fanatics chasing straight white boys, middle-class white boys, because they want to get a few white boys' scalps. They're, if you couldn't even call it rape. It's kind of unwanted sex but in the patriarchy and the power dynamic of patriarchy, this is what's being prosecuted in the courts now under the guise of rape. They're not rape cases. They're just gender, power, ideological politics. That's all it is. And in these cases, is he like holding the gun to her head? And it's nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. There's no violence. There's no threat of violence. There's no kidnapping or somebody being tied up. It's nothing like that at all. It's primarily a consensual, a sexual thing, but maybe with a bit too much alcohol, or maybe some party drugs, or maybe they had a falling out afterwards, or maybe she said 1 second before ejaculation stop and he didn't, and that's technically that 1 second is then that's the rape, and so on. So that's what these cases are. But I just want to sort of really highlight just how many false accusations there are out there by women against men for, well, not just rape, but sexually inappropriate behaviour. Now, I've sort of looked at a number of cases where they've talked about men who've supposedly raped underage girls and pedophile and da 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 da. And you find, so when you delve into the details of the thing, it's the girl who's aggressively pursuing the man for sex, and she's like 1 week away from being the legal age. But on purely the technicality of it, she's a minor and he's not, and therefore it's pedophilia. These are very technical matters. I think if you had, like, say, the legal age for a girl to have intimate relations is 17, and you had a girl who was 17 but the boyfriend's 18, they're having intimate relations, and technically she's underage. But I doubt you'd find a jury in the country that would convict two young people of inappropriate behaviour, or the guy in this case, based on that. But so remember that a lot of the cases that we see, particularly where it's straight white boys, is they're nailing them on a very tight technicality, and that technicality is driven by ideological fanaticism. Being a Tacitus throughout your Pushback channel, thank you for listening.